everyone, not just on this Zoom call, but more and more on our other platforms that we're streaming live on, YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook at the same time. So it's great to see everyone tuning in on those mediums as well. Today is no exception. As our members and regulars know, we bring you amazing guests 3 times a week and do a heap of other stuff besides. So today is no exception with our awesome guest today. So what have we got coming up? As always, we've got plenty on. And I always start with a shout out to our corporate partners. And yesterday, very excitingly, we also officially welcomed Delphi Bank as one of our partners as well. We're super proud of this network that we're growing. It is absolutely community. It's about doing more together, and it's all around gender equality, positive progression of women, and having some amazing and sometimes challenging conversations as well. And we could not do that by ourselves. Thanks for putting that chat in, the link in the chat as well, Cam. Please do share this. We do this free. Please invite anyone who you think would really benefit from being part of such a great and dynamic community. So what's coming up? Well, I'll introduce Pascale in a moment. Next week, and for those of you who might be relatively new, you might have just caught the relaunch of our diversity series. So myself and Tiffany Slater co-host our diversity series on Tuesdays. We started with a bang again this week with Anna Bly, no less, and that was a really powerful session on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we've got the incredible Leela Smith. Now, Leela is the Deputy Chief CEO at the Aurora Education Foundation. They do so much amazing work around Indigenous leadership, amongst lots of other things as well. So Leela's going to be on with Tiff and I on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we've got a really engaging and entertaining guest, Tori Archbold. He's the founder of Torstar, PR, branding, has worked with some global clients, and now she's also the founder of Powerful Steps. And we're going to be really talking about how to be visible in a virtual world and what that means, how to own your own brand, your own presence, and loads more besides. And Tori is also very entertaining as well as very wise. So that's going to be another great session as well. And then, of course, our masterclass series. So our members know that the masterclasses are part of what you get as your membership, and we bring you some incredible experts based on what you tell us you want to know more of. So Kate Christie has been on our show as well, and she's really compelling. She finds you 30 more hours in a month, though Kate keeps trying to upsell that to 30 more hours in a week, which would be no mean feat, I have to say. But Kate is really great. She's practical. It's all about how to prioritise. Not sort of pie in the sky ideas. So how do you actually do this? And I know this is a full house tomorrow. So there's still a couple of places though. So Cam's just put the link there in the chat. If you'd still like to come, 12 o'clock tomorrow is our masterclass time. And for those of you who aren't yet members, we'd love you to come and experience an event on us so you can see why I wave my hands around so much and get so excited. So we've got some really great content here. So please don't miss out and take us out on that invitation. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome back, as you say, Cam, we have had the lovely Pascale on before, to chat with us today. So for those of you who don't yet know Pascale, she's the founder and CEO of Super Awards, amongst many other accomplishments. She's had over 20 years financial services, marketing and brand building experience as well. She's a seasoned entrepreneur and startup advisor, and her latest venture is, of course, Super Awards, which is a cash rewards program for women for super in a bid to help women close their superannuation gap. Previously, Pascale was the head of marketing for the investment trust and wealth manager plus businesses of JP Morgan Asset Management in London, and has also held senior marketing roles at BT Financial Group and BNP Paribas. She's the Director of Communications for the Australian Gender Equality Council, an independent national organisation dedicated to achieving gender equality. She holds a BA with honours and a Master of Commerce, both from the University of Sydney, and is a multiple award winner as well. Pascale, welcome. Let's take this slide down. So good to have you back.
And thanks for having me again, Alex. It's great to be here.
Oh, likewise. And, you know, I have to say, so it's Thursday again. Last Thursday night, I'm sure many of us were on the virtual conference that was the Women in Finance Awards. And, of course, where you scooped the pool Entrepreneur of the Year, the Overall Excellence Award. So I want to, congratulations. And I should also say as well, congratulations to everyone who was nominated, because, only a few people win, but, for everyone who was nominated, and I know lots of our own fabulous members were also nominated, as well as few, that is such a feat in itself. But Pascale, because I know they weren't the only two awards that you also won last week. It was a big week.
It was a huge week, actually. So I on last Tuesday, I think it was, I won the Osmanpreneur Awards, Oz standing for Australian Mum Entrepreneur, because so many mums, do their own thing and have their own side hustle and start up businesses because they think it's a great idea to juggle this while raising children. And for those awards, I won Big Idea and Sustainability. So it's certainly, once in a blue moon that you win 4 awards in 1 week, and particularly when you're only nominated for 3. So yeah, it was surprising.
How did you win one award without even being nominated?
Well, it was the Women in Finance Excellence Award, which I didn't know was even a thing until the night. And I just, I'd stayed on for my category, and then saw, in the run sheet, all the nominations and nominees should stay on until the end of the ceremony for this other award. And I thought, oh, well, I've stayed on this long, I may as well keep going. And so I was very surprised when they called out my name.
Well, sincere congratulations. And look, I wanted to, all of you who tune into this show, we start, it's kind of an organic conversation, which is what I love about it. Yeah. I reckon a great place to start with our chat, and we can go anywhere, is, you and I were chatting behind the scenes, and you went, oh yeah, well, it's kind of 9 years in the making. This hasn't just happened overnight.
No.
And I know that we probably flippantly say things like that, but I'd love to really unpack a bit of your journey to this point, because there are and our community well, we've got some incredible women and men, both in corporate roles and, as you say, stepping out into their own businesses, contemplating change. Yes. And the fact is, it's not easy, and we don't need another kind of, oh yes, it was a walk in the park and I just came up, with awards. Like, there's so much more to this journey. So share a bit with us about, your path to this point, if you don't mind.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I do have the corporate background. So 20 plus years of financial services marketing and PR. And I guess my strength in that when I was in corporate world was really building brand and bringing new products to market. So I didn't realize at the time how that was going to set me up for, future endeavors, but it was a great training. And of course, I think having the corporate background is really good because it teaches you to be conscious of, particularly in financial services, things like compliance and, not to mislead people and, we can't say this, but we can say that. So it was a really great training ground. And then I stepped out of corporate life to have children, as so many women do. And it was really, that coincided with an international move. So from London to Sydney. And then once I'd had my children and I was thinking, okay, well, what do I do now? Because to be honest, the endless washing and nappy changing was just not pushing my buttons anymore. So I thought, well, I'll go back and I'll have a chat to people here and see what there is in the way of full-time work or even part-time work. And I really did want to do the part-time work bit. So I toddled off into the city to see a few recruiters. And unfortunately, my company, JP Morgan Asset Management, didn't have an office in Sydney. And so I went to the bigger JP Morgan, but they said, no, you have to have been with us already, blah, blah, blah. So no go. So I went off to see a few recruiters and said, oh, hi, my name's Pascale. I've just come back from London and I'd like to work 3 days a week on the same salary as I was on in London. And they went, ha, 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 thank you so much for coming. So explained to me that I couldn't really contemplate part-time work unless I started off at a company in full-time capacity and then went to part-time work. So I thought, well, this sucks. because I don't want to do that, because my twins was about 9 months old at this point. So I thought, well, what can I do? What's a business that I can run from home that I'm really passionate about, and that I can juggle while juggling them, which I'm sure is, the same narrative thousands of women throughout Australia and the world have told themselves. So my other passion was jewelry, and I'd always been really interested in jewelry, and I had done some sort of custom design work working with jewelers, and I thought, it's a bit of a faff, this whole process, and it's not, it's really time consuming and it's expensive, and there has to be a better way to do this. So long story short, I ended up building a custom jewelry business, and a website, which was an incredible lesson, and series of lessons, in fact, in so many aspects, right? So digital, e-commerce, running your own business, not to mention jewelry, and the startup community and so on. So I learned a heck of a lot. I managed to do that while raising the children. It's sometimes of course, the balance was never there, but you do what you do, and you do what you can in between, trips to the zoo and, feeds and so on. And then after some years and a period of time, I thought, look, it's time to go back to financial services, because I think that's, I've had my run now. I want to go back to financial services. I think that is my true home. And I was working with another startup who was focused on the super space. I learnt a lot with them. We had to part ways, but it did help me understand firsthand, because I did so much presenting to rooms full of hundreds of women, right, where you would start talking about the gender super gap and you could hear crickets, right? People looking at me going, well, what are you talking about? And then I realized, that was a real moment of clarity for me, because I realized how lucky I was. And the reason I was lucky was because when I was in my mid-20s, working for BT Financial Group, I actually wrote the brochures on the importance of compound interest and the importance of salary sacrifice and so on. So in my mid-20s, I started doing all that, right? So with the result that, here we are some years later, we won't put a number on it, but some years later, and I have a very healthy super balance because of all the work that I did with salary sacrifice and so on in my 20s and 30s. So that moment really crystallized for me the lack of education when it comes to superannuation, but also how much the system is stacked against women when it comes to their super. At the same time, I was invited to become the Director of Communications for the Australian Gender Equality Council. Yet another startup, but this one was and is a not-for-profit. And we are basically a group of volunteers who are all very passionate about this topic. And we produce research, groundbreaking research, working in conjunction with the University of Queensland. And we use the results of that research to try and influence government, to try and influence corporates, and try to influence the everyday person on the street. Now, the superannuation gap is just one of the planks of our belief system and our manifesto. But it was working with the council that I not only understood exactly how it is that women retire with 58% as much superannuation as men, and we'll dive into that in a minute, but also more fundamentally, why it is that gap does not change. So the 58% might drift a little either way, maybe 59%, maybe 57%, but fundamentally that gap remains static because the key drivers of the gap don't change.
Yeah.
So that really I became very pissed off, if I can put it frankly. And I thought, this is incredible, right? And I was learning so much through my work with the council, and I had firsthand exposure to how government is aware of these issues and has been aware for a long time, but doesn't make any substantial policy changes. And I was also aware of how, you know, when we were dealing with the corporates, with the council, there was very little, very slow change at that level as well. And because I happened to be managing the social media at the time for the council, I was the one dealing with all the trolls who would come out with such pearlers like, oh, the gender pay gap doesn't exist, or women just need to work harder, or, you know, let's select from a list of, you know, 50. And so I thought this is incredible. There is all this apathy and inaction, but yet at the same time, I'm seeing all this data on how women over 55 are the fastest growing demographic of homeless people in Australia, and how 50% of women aged 65 have absolutely no super, and how women, you know, 1 in 6 women in Australia retires into poverty. And I thought, this is shameful. Like, this is truly shameful. We're in a system and a structure where women are priced out of returning to work because of the cost of childcare. Government's not doing anything. Corporate's not doing anything. Women are still being expected to maintain their family responsibilities and juggle those whilst somehow, you know, doing everything else. So a freaky fact, and is that the average woman working full-time works 14 hours more in unpaid labor than the average man working full-time. So that's 2 days effectively more of unpaid labor that she's working compared to her male counterpart. So we're expected to keep doing all these same things. So I thought, wow, women are absolutely stuck. Even if they, you know, wanted to work, and if they could find a way to work, you know, there are all these other social constraints keeping them effectively doing what they've always been told to do, you know, to stay home, look after the children, etc. So I thought, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way. And so I looked at it as a problem and thought, well, okay, what do women have? Like, what do they have that we can commoditize effectively? So I thought, well, we know that women have a huge amount of responsibility looking after the generation, up, down, sideways. And if we put a dollar value on all that unpaid labor every year that women do, we'd add another $2.2 trillion to the economy, which is huge. Yeah. So point number one, they've got responsibility. Point number two is they make 80% of household purchasing decisions. That's really interesting. And when I thought about it some more, I thought, well, they're making those household purchasing decisions if they're looking after kids, if they're looking after community, if they're looking after elderly parents or a sick family member, and so on. So how about we bring those two things together and to find a way for women to be rewarded into their superannuation just through being women and through, you know, juggling family and coordinating Christmas and doing everything that they do. And so that was the genesis of Super Awards.
Well, there's so much there. And
I know.
So many, you said to me, you're going to have to rein me in. No, yeah. I don't want to rein you in. So I want to come back to Super Awards as well, because for some of our community will know that, you know, we love this and are very supportive, and you've got a great offer for our community as well. So I want to come back to that. The bit that I really want to start unpacking with you, because as I find, you know, I speak to so many amazing people on this show, you included, and it's kind of, it's so matter of fact, because it's just, that's what you're living and that's what you've done, and you know, it's all this hard work.
Yeah.
So many people listening would be saying, yes, we need to do something and have a want to do something to change the dialogue and the actual result. But I think a lot of people kind of, they get stuck in, it feels so big. And it's funny, we were talking about this the other day. It feels so big, some of these social challenges, that where do I even start and what can I possibly do? And so I'd really like to understand a bit more from you, like what is it in you that's either driven you to take these steps from, you know, and I didn't know about your jewelry business. I'm intrigued by that. Something new. So what is it that has you've seen the challenge and the problem, and, you know, it got you really pissed off, as you said, but then you've taken action and you've persisted with that action, because building a platform and a community and an offer and getting that off the ground and funding it and then putting it out there, like, this is no small feat. So what do you think in either your upbringing, your experience, the people around you, like what's enabled you to take this and really build something that will change the result for so many women?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question, and one I don't think I've ever been asked before, because you're effectively, I guess, talking about my genetic makeup in a way. And I think I think it probably comes from two things. I think I've been very lucky in, I've had, a good upbringing and good family and strong family. And so I always think of myself as being very lucky. I've not had, touch wood, any serious health issues. I've been fortunate to have a good education, go on to university, pretty much do whatever I've wanted to be able to do, which there's not really, that many people who can say that. And so I think part of it comes from a want, a desire to, a recognition of my good fortune and therefore a desire to help others, and participate in that or somehow help others. I think the other thing from my perspective is that I went to a school where I was told that women could do anything. Absolutely anything. Maths, science, engineering, climb the, Mount Everest, whatever, that we could do anything. I think it took about 10 years in the workforce, like real life, for me to work out that this was not actually the case in Australia. And so then I had to try and unpack all those things. But I think it does, the desire to affect change does come from that schooling, literally that schooling that women are capable of anything. And I think they're the two things. But I think there's also something in me, something innate. So the first two were more nurture oriented, but I think there is also something innate where if I see something, I just want to improve it. And I can't explain that bit. That must be the entrepreneurial chromosome.
And on that, so interesting. Do you think, so that entrepreneurial chromosome, is it something that others can learn? Because, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I know you're going to love this.
Yes.
How often you do hear lots and lots of organisations, like big corporates and everything in between, but especially big corporates saying, we just need our staff to be more entrepreneurial, and just act like a business owner. And it's kind of the just part of it. And I'm fascinated by this because, like you, having worked in big corporate, and it's not that simple. It's mindset, it's ecosystem, it's so many things that even enable and allow that entrepreneurial spirit to breathe.
Yep.
Is it even possible to think? So that's
another excellent question. So two for Alex. I totally get that corporates want to be more innovative and adopt an entrepreneurial approach to new projects, new features. Absolutely, 100%. Let's do it. I think you can teach the principles of, entrepreneurship to people within the corporate space or to newcomers, etc. But I think that there are some people, I think being an entrepreneur also comes with a big risk appetite. I have a girlfriend who recently said to me, I can't remember what we were talking about, but obviously something business related. And she turned to me and she said, "You have balls of steel." And I was just like, "Do I?" "No." And she was like, "No, you do." But see, I don't perceive it that way. But if I think about the people I know who've succeeded in the entrepreneurial world, they do have a greater risk appetite. That is absolutely for sure.
And is that risk appetite, is that around an appetite for uncertainty? Is it cash flow related? Is it stuff might not work and you try again? Is it all of that? So unpack that for us.
Yes. So look, it's risk around cash flow. It's risk around, what product feature, what if this doesn't work? What do we do then? It's even risk around what if no one likes my idea, right? But all those things combined, like I think the true entrepreneur will go, okay, idea number one sucked, so let's come up with idea number two. But I think the biggest thing that separates successful entrepreneurs, however you define success, by the way, because success to some people might mean multi-million dollars, success to others might mean work-life balance, don't know, and that's a personal call. But I would say the biggest thing that separates the successful entrepreneurs from those who are not is the appetite for risk when it comes to failure. Because I think you cannot be a successful entrepreneur if you are afraid of failure. Because guess what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen in some way, some shape, some form. It might be an idea. It might be a new feature. It might be, funding doesn't get off the ground. It might be that the whole business falls. Don't know. But I think that is the greatest differentiator, and that's probably why you won't find a lot of true entrepreneurial people within the corporate environment, because it's not that they can't live together, but it's that they're two different frameworks, right? So.
Oh, this is so fascinating. So as I say to all of you listening and tuning in, do not be shy to ask questions, because even though we're talking about, appetite for entrepreneurialism, and I think you're right, there's definitely, but this whole subject of failure, mindset, we talk a lot about this in varying lenses, on the show. It's interesting. So ask questions is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Comments in the chat about any and all of this.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of at the heart, like even if you're, and as I said, you've been in corporate at very high levels and as you've described, even in leadership roles, when you were talking about the concept of appetite for failure and putting yourself out there and keeping going and having a vision, it's not the same as, being a startup and scaling a business. Yeah. But there's still elements of, you've still got to get to grips with what's failure for you. I mean, did you, when you were more in corporate land and you had those roles, how did you have to contend with fear of failure, or the inevitable imposter syndrome that seems to impact everyone, men and women? Everyone that I talk to goes, oh God, yes, I've felt that. What was your experience of those sorts of things in corporate life?
I was often the only woman in the room, as I'm sure so many people on this call have experienced at one point or another. And particularly in London, JP Morgan had 20 investment trusts, and I would have to present to the investment trust boards, once a year or twice a year, whatever it was, about, the sales and marketing we were doing, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can imagine, each board was comprised of, 5 or 6 old Etonians or Harrovians, public school educated, which is our private school, and terribly, Sir this, that, or Lord that, or whatever. And they just used to love me coming in, because I was the young Aussie female, and they'd be like, oh, let's see what the convict is going to say today, kind of thing. And I mean, can you believe it?
You cringe even just imagine that.
But true story. And but I always thought, look, success is my best answer. And so I used to take great delight coming in and at the next board meeting and say, well, this campaign generated £8 million into your investment trust, and blah, 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 blah. So that was my answer, and that was my response. So I think I never really felt like an imposter, but I often felt that, just being the only female in the room wasn't always that, well, it was a lonely place. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and you're right. So I think so many of this community, and certainly, I can identify with that as well. So fast forward to today.
Yes.
So Super Awards and this whole mission around the super gap. And again, it's so multi-layered because and you alluded to before, and I'd love to know a bit more about your work with the Gender Equality Council as well, because you said a bit earlier, to paraphrase, everything, there's awareness, but it's slow to action, and maybe it's the wrong kind of action. And what is it, do you think, that's going on? Because I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this before. All these statistics. I think there's an article in the Sydney Morning Herald this morning that's actually we've gone backwards. People, CEOs, female CEOs. What is it that there's so much money being spent on diversity and inclusion programs? It's everywhere. We're probably all sick of hearing the statistics, and yet, what is it, do you think? And I'm not looking for you for the silver bullet answer, just in your all the work you're doing, all the people that you're speaking to, getting this business off the ground, the research with the council. What do you think is it that organisations and governments and people kind of don't know what to do, or they're not bold enough, or I don't know?
Yes. Gosh.
Sorry, another big question.
A, B, C, and D, which is all of the above.
Probably.
So maybe I'll recap. We'll start to respond there by just recapping some of the central tenets that we try and address at the Gender Equality Council. So firstly, the gender pay gap sits at 22%. Now, the headline number that everybody is more familiar with is that it's at 13 or 14%, but that's on a direct weekly wage comparison. But if you take into account all the things like bonuses, overtime, leave, and so on, that actually makes the actual gap 22%. And I do want to stress here and just remind everyone that the gender pay gap is not a direct comparison of a man and woman doing the same role for this, not at all. It is a function, or it's measured as a percentage of women's work compared to men's work within the full-time workspace. So, and the reason that there is a gender pay gap is multi-layered and complex and so on. It comes down to unconscious bias, sex discrimination, and a variety of other factors. But suffice to say, I think I might just summarize before we head on down that rabbit hole by saying that when we measure the gender pay gap on total remuneration, it is 22%. The second key plank of the council's proposition is, again, the superannuation gap, where women retire with 58% as much super as men. That translates, so women retire currently with about $157,000 in their super, which on a budget retirement translates to about 6 years, right? So a budget retirement, as defined by ASFA, is $25,000 a year. And that's really budget. And guess what? That calculation does also assume home ownership.
Yeah, right.
So that's a trap for young players. A lot of people don't realize that. The third plank in our, or part of the campaign that we led with for the council, was the fact that 4 out of 10 women in Australia suffer some sort of discrimination at work for being female. So whether that is, they've been made redundant while on maternity leave, or they've been discriminated against, comments like, oh, you're leaving work early again, when they head out the door at 5 o'clock to collect the children from childcare. 4 out of 10 women have suffered discrimination based on the fact that they're female in the workplace. Then we also have, just the levels of sexual harassment in Australia, which are quite extraordinary. The numbers for any woman aged over the 18, roughly 1 in 4 women has been sexually harassed, which is a phenomenal number. And as I look at this, the number of people on this call, there's probably women on this, and maybe men as well, who have suffered some sexual harassment. But the fifth, and this is always to me the most startling statistic, is that as a culture and as a nation, Australians pay their daughters 27% less pocket money than they pay their sons.
Which I struggle to wrap my mind around that.
I know. But it's not necessarily a case of doling out, you know, here's little Johnny, here's $1 for you, and little Janie, here's, you know, 73 cents for you. It's more, it actually came out of a Westpac Money and Kids report. And our researchers looked, that's not the way Westpac presented it, but our researchers, together with the UQ Business School, went through and looked at the amount of time spent for the little girls doing chores versus little boys doing chores, and then compared what each was being paid and went, wow, okay. And it comes down to a lot of subconscious or unconscious biases. So we might say, hey, little Johnny, here's $2 to take out the bins, right? But we expect little Janie just to unpack the dishwasher for free. So that, for example, that's a part of it. So all of these things really, when we look at it in, you know, as a holistic proposition, we say, wow, we really have some very big cultural issues in Australia. So, you know, we're paying our daughters 27% less. Is it any wonder that women retire with 58% as much super? Not really, you know, with that start in life. So there's a lot of cultural factors at play here, I think, and we're seeing that in the World Economic Forum gender equality rankings. So Australia has slid backwards from 15th on the, you know, compared to other countries globally in gender equality. 15th, we are now 39th in the space of, I think it's 12 or 13 years. So this, not only are we not progressing, but we're actually going backwards. And, you know, this measure looks at function of women in politics, gender pay gap, you know, women's workforce participation, and so on. So we really have a lot of cultural issues at play. And of course, you know, that is coming or being sustained, I think, by government. You know, we don't have, you know, unlike some of the, you know, Nordic countries, we don't have, or even our neighbours in New Zealand, we don't have leaders who are saying, hey, guess what, we're going to make childcare tax deductible, or okay, we're going to actively fine any company that where there is a gender pay gap. So I think our measures here in Australia are not stringent enough, and because they're not stringent enough, and there's no quotas being implemented necessarily, and it all feels just way too hard, and how do I change the system? I think that is why things don't change.
Yeah.
And in fact are sliding backwards.
Gosh, it's damning, isn't it, when you think of that that ranking for Australia. So, and this is why I'd love to bring it back more specifically to Super Awards, because I think, I mean, one, it's so important on so many levels, and it's great. Louise has asked, I missed and Jen, thanks, Jen, for going, hey, this is what it is, and it's awesome. So let's talk about Super Awards, because one, it's a fantastic platform. It's great. It's super practical, but super practical. See what I did there without even meaning to. But on a serious note, I think it's really important what you're doing and the team's doing, because everything you've just described, like, you can feel the heaviness of, you know, Charlie, you've gone, how do we start? What can we do in finance? And you're right, women and men, what can we do to bridge the gap? And it's so big that this was kind of the point, you know, when I was asking you, it just feels like,
overwhelming.
Yes. But you've clearly defined this is the bit that we can take action on. Thanks, Cam. Well done. This is the bit that we can take action on. It doesn't solve everything, but I think this is where we fall down. None of us can solve everything, but together we can all play our part. Yes. So tell us specifically about how it works. Yes. And obviously how our wonderful community can participate as well.
Yes, absolutely. So Super Awards is an online shopping platform where you earn cash back into your existing super fund when you shop at the retailers on Super Awards. So we have some almost 300 retailers on the platform, including Woolies, Pet Barn, The Iconic, Country Road, Catch, Apple, eBay, and many, many others. So we've got all the key categories, right, of household, groceries, clothing, beauty, everything you could want on the platform. So the sign-up process to Super Awards is super easy, haha. And that was very deliberate, because we know that everything in superannuation tends to be really complex and really, in industry has done a really good job of making it very complicated. So we wanted to avoid that. We wanted things to be super easy to do, and to, just start adding money to your super through what you do every day. So sign up takes 2 minutes, name, address, email, date of birth. You don't have to connect to your super fund straight away. You can do that at any time, but it is the act of shopping with the retailers on the platform that is actually going to earn you the super. No good just to sign up. That's not going to get you any super, but you actually have to shop through the platform, and the retailers contribute to your super through us. So the average cashback offered on the platform is 5%, which is a pretty healthy number. So, at one end of the scale, you have Woolies who offer 1%, and that's because it's groceries, and, we're buying groceries all the time. But then, the fashion and beauty brands at the other end of the scale are offering like 8, 9, 10%. So the midpoint is 5%. So if I think about my account, obviously, I'm a believer, but just through the last 10 months, I've accrued over $420 of Super Awards just by being me, doing the weekly grocery shop and buying school clothes for the children, and buying gifts for Father's Day, which we had recently, and now I'm starting to think about Christmas that's coming up, and coordinating social occasions and birthday presents for my friends and so on. So I just do all my shopping through Super Awards because it has everything I need, and the retailers between them have contributed $420 to my superannuation. So happy days.
And you know what I love a lot about this? I love that it's practical, it's easy, and as as you say, Janine, it's what we're doing already. This is the thing.
That's right.
And it's harnessing what we're already spending, what we're already doing, to actually then generate superannuation. Before we finish as well, Louise just asked, can we donate our super points to people in need?
So this is not this is not points. This is cash back into your superannuation. And no, it has to be linked to a specific super fund, i.e. yours. So that's not something that we can do. I think there was another one from Louise. Oh, sorry. It's not Flybuys, no. So yeah, but you do earn super every time you shop. But as I say, the super is in the form of cash, because we can't live on our points in retirement. Yeah,
good point. A good point. So literally all we need to do is, for everyone here, you saw on the slide, promo code is FEW. Just enter that, go to the Super Awards website and sign up. And as we say, you've got to take action and actually do this to get the benefit. So let's all do that. Thank you so much, Pascale. I told you this always goes so fast. I feel like
I know.
We've covered kind of the gamut from, business to entrepreneurialism to why is nothing happening fast enough in superannuation. But genuinely congratulations again on those awards, because it's important. For one, it's a recognition of everything you're doing, but also, as I'm sure you're finding, it gives more of a platform to these messages and these important conversations as well, which I think is such an important part of what you're doing and the work that you're doing. So thank you so much. And thanks for being part of this amazing show. Everyone, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you want to know more from Pascale, you know where to find her. And also you can link in with her, as I always encourage you to do, link in and connect. But thank you for being part of this. Have a brilliant rest of the week. Don't miss Tuesday. We're back with the diversity series, myself and Tiff with Leela Smith. So don't forget to be there as well. See you then. And in the meantime, stay safe. Bye for now.